Glad to know you stay with us. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria has voted to raise its benchmark interest rate, otherwise called the Monetary Policy Rate MPR, to 17.5% from 16.5% in its January 2023 meeting. This was announced by the Apex Bank's Governor, Godwin Emefiele, following the end of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting held on Tuesday, 24th January 2023. This is the first interest rate hike in 2023, and it suggests that the Apex Bank is continuing with the hawkish rate policy started in 2022. Recall that the CBN had raised interest rates by a cumulative 500 basis points last year in a bid to tame the rising inflation rate in the country. Well, joining us to look at the impact this will have on the economy and how investors can rebalance their portfolios for profitability is finance expert and investment banker Mukhtar Mohammed, the CEO of Finance with Mukhtar. He joins us virtually. Hello, Mukhtar. Thank you for joining us today. Hello, Mukhtar. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
All right. Well, the decision to further tighten the monetary policy rate was made despite the moderation witnessed in December's headline inflation rate. How did you receive the news? Was it what you expected?
It was what I expected. If you listen to the CBN governors in the Global Economic Summit, they emphasized the need to tighten to fight inflation. So I wasn't surprised. And if you look at the little result they were able to achieve in bringing down inflation in December, via the festivity period and the flooding in terms of agricultural household items because of those floods. So you expected that it would have been more support because of their tightening. I think it made it look a little bit better. So I expected them to do that, and I was surprised when it happened.
Well, while the MPC posits that the moderation recorded in December isn't enough to celebrate, some analysts have said the decision to raise the interest rate by 100 basis points could be because of the campaign season and the imminent removal of fuel subsidies. Do you share the same thought? Could all these have, probably contributed to the decision of the MPC?
Exactly. Removal of subsidy, again, campaigns, planting issues, and also you must not forget that even as we presently are, fuel also has gone up in some places outside of Lagos, even within Lagos metropolitans. People buy fuel for 260, so that also have a effect on inflation. So definitely it's as good as subsidy has been removed, especially if you are in the independent marketer, unless you are of the major marketers. So definitely I think they have looked at that because technically subsidy have been removed, but government is paying subsidy because government is not ready to tell themselves the truth. So I think they had to take that decision because of exactly those 2 points.
But let's go back to what was recorded in December. I mean, if we are beginning to see probably results, why do we still have to keep hiking? Or what do you think was responsible for the result we saw in December, really? What, in your opinion, was responsible for it?
Really, what we saw happen in December, number one, I think the tightening in terms of liquidity also helped. Remember, the CBN said a lot of the banknotes were not in the banking space, but the report eventually told us that they were able to recover about 1.5 trillion into the banking space. I remember they will not be printing 1.5 trillion back into those space. So they use one of the monetary policy tools, which is reduction in inflation to control inflation, reduction in liquidity to control inflationary pressures. I think that also was responsible. Now, ask me, why is it that they are still hiking rate? You remember that the problem in Nigeria does not have to do with interest rate alone. It has to do with exchange rate volatility. And as it stands now, this NNPC, which happens to be the cash cow of the country, is not sending anything to the federation account with the CBN. So definitely, and also manufacturers are not able to access enough of the greenback from the banks, and so they have to patronize the parallel market. So they are looking at all these factors and begin to factor them in and said, if we need to tame inflation, we need to do this. And I think that's what they are doing.
Well, really, so far, what has been the impact of previous rate hikes, especially, since May 2022? What has been the impact? What are the things we can say we have seen so far, that should encourage further hikes?
Well, perpetually, if you look at it, what we encourage for the high, you don't seem to see it. But why are we not seeing it? Because there should be a synergy between the monetary policy and the physical side. So what we see when the monetary does their own, the physical side try to reject their own economic policy to bring more money to the people, pumping more money either through loans, through investment, to people anymore. But as it stands now, the physical side does not want to hear any of that. So definitely, that's why you're not seeing the kind of result we should be seeing. So to say there will not be result, there have been results if you look at it from where we are coming from. Remember, there was a time inflation was about 16%. It went to 9% before it started coming down here. So definitely, there have been results. And I think this time around is a global challenge. And globally, all the CBN governors are beginning to think of how to tame inflation. And I think part of one of those measures is to hike interest rates.
Well, last year, the CBN launched the redesigned Naira notes, and then that was followed by a cash withdrawal limit policy. Don't you feel the CBN could have waited to watch the impact before, probably adding another hike to the MPR? Don't you think all this will further affect businesses and individuals at the end of the day?
Definitely, we affect businesses and individual in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to benefit businesses and individual, because when we are talking about business and individual, you should be thinking about how you want to reduce cost. And so by bringing a cashless policy, it has reduced costs in terms of handling of cash, in terms of deposit of.
Mr. Mukhtar, do go ahead if you can hear me. All right, that's Mr. Mukhtar talking to us about the rate hike that was, of course, affected by the MPC at the just concluded two-day MPC meeting. And for him, he expected the hike, and he's talking to us about the impact on businesses and individuals, especially when we look at the redesigned Naira notes and, of course, the cashless policy, which the CBN is trying to push. If you can hear me, do take it up from there. Mr. Mukhtar, if you can hear me, do take it up from there.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I can hear you clearly.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. You were saying something. You were talking about the cashless policy and all that.
So when you look at the cashless policy of the CBN, that also will help businesses. We create more avenue for business to reduce overhead costs in their businesses. That is one. Then secondly, when you look at the redesigned Naira note, if you listen to what the chairman of the Association of Bureau de Change, Mr. Ngwadabe, said over the weekend, he said the redesign of Naira has brought stability into the parallel market, even if you say the rate was still high. Because before they came in, you remember that before the redesigning statement came, you remember that and this cashless policy came up into effect. You remember that the exchange was almost hitting 1,000. It was about 900, and people were saying we get to 1,000. Now we have a little bit of stability in that space between 750. I think 750 is the high from 750, 720, 730, 740. So definitely you've seen the positive impact in the short term. But in the long term, it could bring stability, we have business to plan. And so for me, I think it's the right decision as long as we are able to stick by it and walk through it.
Well, quickly now that we're talking about the impact on businesses and individuals, I like how you've brought in, the exchange rate and how that it's a good one for that, which, of course, that's also a very important aspect of our economy. But then how does the federal government hope to manage the impact of these hikes, on businesses, on production, especially manufacturers who have complained bitterly?
The one way they should be able to help is to make sure that manufacturers are able to access the export-import window and get most of the effects they need, either for overhauling of their machines or bringing in new machines, and also some people that are also have to bring in materials. So I think that's first thing, that's the way the government should help. They should come up with policy also that could help in the area of tax holiday. But you and I know that this government does not play with their tax. They are not thinking of tax holiday. They're not seeing it as anything they want to go by. So definitely, if you don't give businesses this, then you are going to throw a lot of people more into the unemployment market, which is already oversaturated. So what I think government should do is to look at these 2 points and see how they can support them in any of it, so that they will be able to keep their staff and pay them salaries.
All right, thank you so much. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Thanks for staying with us. Thanks for joining us again, Mukhtar Mohammed.
Thank you.
Well, let's look at the impact on the capital market now. What are your thoughts? What do you see?
Well, the impact on the capital market has been mild, and I expect it to be mild because I think when you look at the price of some of this equity, they are cheap, comparable in terms of comparable to what is obtained in other stock markets, especially in Africa. So it's still bagging hot for investors that want to invest in the capital market. And also, you look at the inflation, then you need to come.
Mr. Mukhtar, you were saying you were talking about the impact it's having on the capital market, and I would like you to go on ahead if you can hear me. Mr. Mukhtar.
I can hear you, but you can't hear me. I can hear you.
All right, I can hear you now. So you are talking about the impact on the capital market. Please go ahead.
I said the impact on the capital market will not be so much because it's already been pricing, especially we're in the earnings season. So this time cash is key, especially in an economy that is struggling, like what we're having in the Nigerian economy. So what people are looking at the dividend payout by the price that you enter. And also remember that the price of the equities are still very cheap, comparable to the kind of result that they're having and they're earning per shares. So investors will be looking at dividend yield and then some of them want to look at the fixed income space, and then we look at the dividend yield and what you get from the fixed income space, then what you see in capital appreciation. So it all depends on investor perception and what they think, but I think the effect on the capital market will not be much.
All right. Well, let's look at, when we talk about the capital markets, now let's look at the equities market and the fixed income market. There are those who are saying that the equities market will be hard hit compared to the fixed income market. And they are saying that we're probably going to be seeing funds moving from the equities market to the fixed income market. I hear you talk about dividends and all of that. I know there are also people who have said that, well, there could be a consolidation as a result of the fact that we're in the earnings season. I'd like you to, wrap these things up for us.
Well, like I said, it all depends on where you are and what is your investment strategy. So if you look at dividend yield, you look at fixed income payment, you realize that if you enter at a good ratio of prices, especially in a cheaper equity and mostly the tier one bank, you will be getting more in terms of dividend payout yield than what you get in the fixed income pays for 91 days. And knowing fully well that once some of this company finish paying, the next thing is that they release their result and it has a positive impact on the price movement. So it depends on what you are looking at. For the fixed income, I think, like I say, it's fixed, it's certain. But for the capital market, what people are thinking is that maybe there could be a volatility, but I don't think so.
All right, well, talk to us more specifically about the equities market now. What would be your advice to investors and traders in that space? Because, I mean, when you have this conversation out there, what you just hear is that blanket statement that the equities market will be hurt. I mean, you see reports, I'm sure you've started seeing the headlines, how this is bad for the equities market, and that's what is out there. So, I mean, coming from your own perspective, I'd like you to speak specifically to, people who are in that space.
When they say it's bad for the equity market, you should remember that rates was high also in December and the equity market still performed very well. So it has been priced in, and like I said, because of the bargain in terms of price of this equity, investors still see value in the equity market than in any other place. So I don't think people are being fair, maybe the reports, but if from where I'm standing, with what I'm seeing, the equity market still remains the best to edge against inflation.
All right, thank you so much. Just before we close, I'd like to bring this conversation about the redesigned Naira note and then the deadline, which is January 31. Very quickly, just before you close, what's your thought on that particular matter? With the CBN insisting yesterday that nothing will happen to the deadline, it remains January 31. Do you think so much has been done to ensure that that happens? Because from where I stand now, I am afraid that some persons might still be stuck with the old Naira notes. I mean, if you need to do certain things, run errands or stuff just around the street, and then what happens to you? What becomes of you?
I agree with you totally, Perpetual. And like I've said, the CBN have not clothed themselves, including in the way they went about it, especially in letting Nigerian knows. But as it stands, they've said it that there's no going back. For me, the only challenge I see is in the rural area. I think the urban area, even if you don't get ATM distributing the new naira notes, you go into the banking space, they'll pay you that money. And these days, like up to today, people have been saying that they cannot even get money from the ATM. I think it's deliberate because if you cannot put the new naira note there, why do we want to go and withdraw the old naira note? And in some cases, when you have the old naira note, I mean the new naira note, the CBN have made an assurance so that POS, I mean ATM machines will only be 200 naira, that will be, but you see 1,000 naira. So definitely, it's not good time, but I think it's a good policy. The mobilization of that. But again, what I would advise every Nigerian is that you still have time to return those old naira notes and get the new naira notes.
All right, that's interesting. But we see that when we look at the currency swap policy, it would seem that people in Lagos and Abuja are sidelined because they are saying that you can go to the POS operators and you can, exchange these monies. But POS operators in Lagos and Abuja are exempted. Why is that so?
Because of the, this is the whole idea of POS is all about like a petty cash. You talk about 10,000, 20,000. This is what people in the rural area do. So, and if we look at Lagos and Abuja, there are banks virtually five up to like 5 kilometers from almost everybody. So you could actually go into the bank and do your transaction, compared to these rural people that some of them is only those POS terminals or the ATM machines that they see. So I understand that policy and I think it's right.
Okay. Well, just before you go, on a very light note, do you have the 200 naira new note? Because there are persons who are saying that it's scarce, that they have a lot of the 1,000 naira notes. But when you talk about 200 naira, it's scarce. Well, is that your experience or is your own experience different?
I have not seen 200. I have not seen 500. Even when I went to an ATM over the weekend, what I was able to get was 1,000 naira note. I've not seen the 200. I've not seen the one with the 500. And if you go what the CBN governor was saying, he said the 200 naira notes are what should be in the ATM machine. Exactly. So we should have been seeing more of the 2,200 naira notes. I think it's a logistic challenge. Remember that it's been printed here in the country. You have to move it from security and printing mail to CBN. Then CBN in turn will move it to their various branches all over Nigeria. Those branches will also move it to the banks. The banks will now distribute to their. So it's a whole lot. I think what we are seeing here is the disruption in terms of the transportation chain in making sure that branches and headquarters get this, because if you go by what CBN is saying, CBN said we have enough of this currency in circulation. Even at the point they were even saying the banks were refusing to collect it, and every bank that refused to collect every day will be fined 1 million. So, and if you go to ATMs today, like I said, the banks have stopped dispensing old notes. Rather, the ATM will be empty without note. You will have to go into the banking space together. And the same CBN came up with the policy again that said you cannot withdraw this new note over the counter. You must go to the ATM. So there's a lot of confusion, especially from the CBN. They need to put their act together and get this done. Why I don't want them to reverse this is that the positive effect we see in the area of inflation and in the area of monetary inflation and also stability in the parallel market. It might not be very huge stability, but for the past 2 to 3 months, we've seen 2 months exactly, we've seen relative stability in the parallel market, whereby the naira to dollar exchange for 700 and then to 750. So I think the CBN need to up their game.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the show today.
Pleasure.
We have been speaking with Mukhtar Mohammed, investment banker and CEO, Finance with Mukhtar. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll bring you the Global Oil Market Report. Stay with us.